Thank you, and I apologize to our nominees. I've been presiding over the Senate. That is a duty as much as it is an honor. The chairman remembers doing that in the Reagan administration. Back before he came to the right side.
Right.
Ms. Peirce, I have some questions about the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, FINRA. Last year, you wrote a paper analyzing the structure and operations of FINRA with one theme being, quote, although commonly perceived as a self-regulator, FINRA is not accountable to the industry in the way a self-regulator would be, end quote. Could you elaborate on that theme?
Certainly. The FINRA is sort of has changed over time and is something different than what its predecessor organization was. And it right now has a board that has people that are drawn not from the industry. And so that raises concerns about what exactly the organization is. To whom is it accountable? Is it accountable to the industry? Is it accountable to the SEC? Is it accountable to investors? And I think there have been concerns raised from each of those areas, from each of those constituencies, that it's not doing a good job. Now, certainly if I were to be confirmed as a commissioner, I would want to meet with and speak with folks from FINRA as well as the people at the SEC who oversee FINRA and see if there are areas where we can shore up the SEC's oversight of FINRA and work together to make sure that investors are being protected as they should be and that the organization is working as it should be.
So what are the implications for our securities market if the regulatory entity for broker-dealers operates with only nominal oversight from the SEC? As you pointed out in the paper, less SEC oversight than the Public Company Accounting Oversight Board receives.
The implications are that we're not getting the kind of regulation of broker-dealers that we need, and so perhaps, you know, there are concerns that that innovation is being slowed by the way FINRA is governed, and that investors are not being protected the way they should be, and that there's no ability for someone to say to FINRA, okay, we're going to hold you accountable for this decision because it's one step removed. So those are the nature of the concerns I have. Again, I'd want to get to the SEC and talk with the people who are actually doing the monitoring of FINRA to better understand if there's more that the SEC can do to watch more closely.
So over the last 7 years in many industries, to include this financial services industry, we've seen considerable consolidation. Specifically among broker-dealers, we've seen consolidation from 7,900 back 15 years ago to only 4,000 a day. I would estimate that rising compliance costs from multiple regulatory initiatives is a factor in this consolidation. One, do you agree? And two, if so, what could that trend imply for municipal issuers and investors, particularly in small states like Arkansas?
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly that small financial firms are feeling the press of regulation in a way that large firms don't. In fact, I think regulation was once described as a moat around the larger firms, protecting them. So that's a concern that needs to be taken into account. In terms of the municipal space, certainly when you see smaller financial firms disappearing, I think municipal issuers have fewer options. So that's a concern generally.
And then thinking about FINRA's future going forward, it seems that it's kind of in this neither fish nor fowl category now with its relationship to the SEC, but also not maybe being purely a SRO anymore. Do you think it needs to move in one direction or the other? It needs to essentially be folded in to the commission, or it needs to be, you know, returned or reconceived as a true SRO, maybe with competing SROs as well?
Yeah, I mean, as I laid out in the paper, there are multiple options. You could go to the route of folding it into the SEC. You could go to the route of trying to encourage there to be competing SROs, or you could go the route of just trying to reform FINRA and put in some more accountability mechanisms and make sure the SEC is doing its oversight properly. I haven't formed an opinion on what the right answer is. To some degree, that lies with Congress and certainly not with the SEC. But it would be an area that if I were to be confirmed, I would want to speak with the staff who are day-to-day involved with this oversight and understand from them what they think the best course is, and then speak with my fellow commissioners as well.
Thank you. My time has expired, but congratulations to you all on your nominations and your willingness to serve. Mr. Jepson, thank you in particular for your past service in uniform to our country.